Stargate was a film in 1994 by Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich. Even if you don't recognize their names, you definitely know their work. Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, 2012, Moon, Fall. A lot of them are stinkers, but there's something about them that just feels like going to the movies. When I was a kid and I first saw the movie Stargate, I was blown away. I'd never seen anything like it. I was 8 years old over at my friend's house, and he was like, just trust me, this movie's really cool. I loved it. We were always running around the forest shouting words from the movie that we didn't understand the meaning of, pretended we were Skara and O'Neill, and then that summer I moved. I had no friends all summer. I would stay up late at night. I was going into 4th grade, and one Sunday at 11:30 at night on local TV, there was a syndicated rerun of the episode Entity. It was the one where Carter gets possessed by a computer virus. I had no idea what I was looking at. The Stargate's there. That's definitely the military base. That's Daniel Jackson for sure. But who the hell are all the rest of these people? My friend came over to visit, and I think this was probably the last time I saw him. I was like, Paul, did you know that they made a TV version of Stargate? I just saw it randomly one night. And I think he didn't even believe me. It was so long ago that I can't remember. Fast forward to a few months later, and SG-1 Monday was running on the Sci-Fi Channel. They would run one episode of Stargate every day of the week, but on Mondays they played 3 additional ones, so you got 4 episodes that day. I immediately started taping them all, and I watched that tape over and over again all week long. And it got to the point where I was watching 4 on SG-1 Monday, 1 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. A new one came out on Friday, no Stargate on Saturday. And on local TV there was a syndicated version that would play at 11:30 on Sundays. I was hooked. And the reason that I think this story is important is because I'm cynical. I know that this is bad. I know when it's bad. And it drives me crazy when I see retrospectives of this show where people talk about, this is why we love Stargate, or this amazing show, top 10 episodes that make us say wow, or mysteries that have never been solved that are just plot holes. You're missing the point. If you want to just wear rose-colored glasses and pretend that this is all an amazing production, it's not. But what it does do well is really important. This is a show about friendship and being true to your people and sticking together. It's about being inquisitive, strong, curious, and doing the right thing. As a 9-year-old kid who had nobody at the time, this was everything that I needed.
You're a member of my team, SG-1. You're a friend of mine.
Why am I here?
Hey, why are any of us here?
In middle school, I mentioned a Goa'uld word to one of my partners in my group on a project. And he said, is that Goa'uld? Turns out his family watched the show together. I became buddies with him, and we got our other friend to watch the show. Then we got another friend to watch the show. I go to high school and I find a few other people who watch the show. Maybe I'm reading too deep into this, but growing up, I started with nothing but this. And then I carried this knowing how good it was to have what I found. When we were 14, one of my friends was doing a watch through. He had it all on his iPod video, and we'd watch the terrible compressions on his TV. I remember telling him, oh, you're in for a treat on this one. This one's really good. Or, I mean, you can skip this one if you want to. And he'd be like, no, I'm going to finish the whole thing. I'm going to watch the whole thing. I'm never going to forget that feeling of watching through it with him and seeing him go through it all and making it to the series finale with my friends and eating power bars together as we watched Unending. That's what this video is about. It's about that feeling of telling somebody, you don't have to watch this one, or I loved this one. Wasn't that great? Geez, look at the cheesy effects on this one. We're going to go through everything, and we're not going to take ourselves too seriously. They didn't take themselves too seriously when they were making the show, and that's the way this should be done.
What do you mean a show like this?
So hey, enough of my yakking. What do you say? Let's boogie. Stargate, 1994. In Egypt during 1928, an artifact's discovered. This giant stone ring covered in symbols. Flash forward to present day, and Dr. Daniel Jackson's giving a talk about who really built the pyramids.
Inside the pyramid, the most incredible structure ever erected, there are no writings whatsoever.
Well, who do you think built the pyramids?
I don't have any idea who built them. I mean, that...
Men from Atlantis? Or Martians, perhaps?
This is before the rest of the world was into ancient aliens and all that stuff, so these people ain't ready for it, but their kids are gonna love it. In the audience is Catherine Langford. She's the daughter of the guy who found the Stargate, and she's leading a team that's trying to decode the Stargate.
What is this all about?
Job.
What kind of a job?
Translation. Ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs.
I'm gonna go now.
Go where? I mean, you've just been evicted from your apartment. Your grants have run out. Everything you own are in those 2 bags. Want to prove that your theories are right? This is your chance.
Meanwhile, Colonel Jack O'Neill is at his lowest. His kid accidentally shot himself with his own gun, and we find him ready to do the same, when out of nowhere he's reactivated by the Air Force. Catherine Langford brings Dr. Jackson to this military base and shows him this cover stone.
Those aren't hieroglyphics. Might be some form of hieratic or maybe cuneiform.
Excuse me. What are you doing?
Stop door to heaven. Stargate. Well, so why is the military so interested in 5,000-year-old Egyptian tablets?
My report says 10,000. This information has become classified.
Why are you here? Why did they bring you?
I'm here in case you succeed.
So you think you've solved in 14 days what they couldn't solve in 2 years?
2 years?
Anytime.
These figures that you would believe to be words to be translated were star constellations.
Now, these constellations were placed in a unique order, forming a map or an address of sorts. 7 points to outline a course to a position to find a destination within any three-dimensional space. You need 6 points.
You said you needed 7 points.
Well, no, 6 for the destination. But to chart a course, you need a point of origin.
He did it.
No. That symbol isn't anywhere on the device.
All right, well, what device?
Show it.
So they dial the Stargate and send in a probe. The probe reveals that the symbols don't match on their gate, which obviously they're constellations. They're meant to chart a course.
They don't match the symbols on our gate.
That's why we may have to abort.
Once on the other side, we'd have to decipher the markings on their gate, and in essence, dial home, in order to bring the team back.
Based on this new information, I don't see how we can do that.
Well, I could do that.
Are you sure?
Positive.
He's full of shit.
Strangely, Daniel Jackson says that he's able to decipher the symbols on the other Stargate, which doesn't really make any sense, because if they're constellations, how helpful is an archaeologist in that situation? And if we're expecting a tablet on the other side, the phone number is going to be pretty clear. But whatever, he says that he'll be able to handle it no matter what, so the military decides to send a team. One by one, they pass through the event horizon and get rocketed across the universe. They get shot out the other side inside a pyramid, and once they've got their bearings of sort of where they are, Colonel O'Neill says it's time to turn back and make contact with Earth.
Wrap this up, get everybody back inside. I want all you people back through the Stargate within the hour. Jackson, start working on the Stargate.
I'm gonna need more time. I mean, there's bound to be more structures here. Or some other traces of civilization.
Not this trip. Just get back in there and reestablish contact.
Well, it's not that easy. This is a replica of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're not gonna find any hieroglyphic inscriptions or carved relief. I mean, we really need to look around.
Your job here is to realign the Stargate. Can you do that or not?
I can decipher the symbols on the Stargate, but I need an order of alignment. Now, those coordinates were marked on tablets back on Earth, and there must be something like that here. And I just need to find it.
What do you mean, find it? You didn't say anything about finding anything.
Well, I assume the tablets would be.
You're a lying son of a bitch! You didn't say a word about finding anything!
What's always strange to me about this is it's sort of framed like they're bullying Daniel.
Isn't there something you should be doing right now? Like getting us out of here?
And they call him a geek and all kinds of things, but he just risked everybody's life. And he probably knew he was lying. He kind of deserves this. So they go exploring and find a civilization, as if 5,000 years had never gone by. The locals get a peep of Daniel's Eye of Ra necklace, and they think that they were sent here by the gods. So they roll out the red carpet. A sandstorm has rolled in and left them stranded in this village. They try to get some information about who these people are, how they got here, and all that stuff, and discover that reading and writing is outlawed. So to make up for his sin, they clean Daniel up, and the mayor gives him his daughter. This is Cor-Ai. Meanwhile, a giant alien spaceship lands on the pyramid. Some warriors beam down and beat the living crap out of our guys. Back at the village, Daniel's hanging out with Xiao and learning the story of these people.
A traveler from distant stars escaped from a dying world looking for a way to extend his own life. His body, decaying and weak, he couldn't prevent his own demise. Apparently his whole species was becoming extinct. He came to a world rich with life, where he encountered a primitive race, humans. A species which, with all his powers and knowledge, he could maintain indefinitely. He realized within a human body he had a chance for a new life. Now, he apparently found a young boy. It says, as the frightened villagers ran, night became day. Curious and without fear, he walked towards the light. Ra took him and possessed his body. He appointed himself ruler. He used the Stargate to bring thousands of people here to this planet as workers for the mines. Just like the one we saw. Something happened, where is it, back on Earth? A rebellion or uprising, and the Stargate was buried there. Fearful of a rebellion here, Ra outlawed reading and writing.
Jackson, I think you better take a look at this.
That's what we're looking for. Where's the 7 symbol? It's worn off. I can't make it work without the 7 symbol.
The team makes their way back to the pyramid, and there's a firefight that goes bad. Dr. Jackson and Colonel O'Neill are brought before Ra, and he starts to monologue.
That's a bomb, isn't it? What the hell were you thinking? What'd you come here for?
So O'Neill's orders were to destroy the Stargate on the other side if he found a sign of a threat. And it kind of makes you wonder why the Air Force chose Colonel O'Neill for this.
You understand this complicates things.
That's why I wanted you, Jack.
Is it that Colonel O'Neill was best for the job? Or was it that Colonel O'Neill was willing to die? Daniel gets brought back to life with this magic sarcophagus. Ra tells Daniel, hey, you know your plan to blow me up? Well, I'm gonna blow you up instead. I've made your bomb a super bomb, and we're gonna destroy your planet. Then Ra organizes this show of force in which Daniel is meant to kill Colonel O'Neill. He turns his weapon on Ra, then the people make a run at trying to overthrow him. It goes kinda okay. We lick our wounds, and Colonel O'Neill comes clean about the real plan.
My orders were simple. Track down signs of any possible danger. If I found any, blow up the Stargate. Well, I found some.
Well, your bomb is his now. And tomorrow he's going to send it back to Earth, along with the shipment of that mineral they mine here.
You had accepted the fact that no matter what happened, you would not be going home. I don't want to die. Your men don't want to die. And these people here don't want to die. It's a shame they're in such a hurry, too.
Colonel O'Neill finds a way to snap out of it, and we hatch a plan to stop the bomb from going to Earth. But hey, guess what? Skara drew this little thing on the wall.
What are you doing? I found it. The 7th symbol. We're going home.
Then, long story short, we send the bomb to Ra's ship, blow him up. Daniel wants to stay behind with his new girlfriend, Xiao, and Colonel O'Neill is ready to go back home now. He wants to live. The end. Alright, so that was the Stargate movie. It's a really dry movie. The good things about it aren't quite the good things about the series, so you kind of have to think about this like a lore dump, even though a bunch of that stuff's about to change. Alright, let's give it a score. So I have 4 criteria: plot, production, characters, and watchability. Plot is the story, the things that happen. How clever is it? Does it play out well? Production, you know, we're talking about a sci-fi series here, so it can get pretty low. So much so that it's worth judging. It doesn't necessarily mean how much money was spent, it's how well was the money spent. I don't mind something being cheap, in fact I admire that, but it has to be clever. And then characters, that's where Stargate makes its money. This is a show about friendship, it's all about characters. And watchability is simply my score. If this was the only thing on TV, would I be happy that this episode or this movie or this piece of Stargate media was the thing that's on TV? And with all of these scores, I'm going to go Stargate worst to Stargate best. So 1 is more like a C+, and 10 is a solid A. There'll be some outliers, but they're very few, and we'll talk about it when we get there. So for this movie, plot, I'll give it a 6. Once we get to the planet, it really drags down. and slows, and it doesn't unfold in an interesting way. After we find the story of Ra, the depth kind of ends there. So the plot of the Stargate movie gets a 6. Production, this is easily a 10. It's a movie, come on. Characters, I'm giving that a 4. Not just because they're different than the Stargate that I'm used to, but people make a lot of bad decisions in this movie that are framed like being heroic or being clever, or like Dr. Jackson saying that he can decipher the symbols on the other side. Like, that is so irresponsible. These people probably had families. And Ra's motivation, like, what did Ra want? Would Daniel have really stayed behind? These characters are really simple, and I don't know, I gotta give it a 4. And watchability, even though this is the thing that kicks everything off, it is the one piece of Stargate media that I don't own digitally, because I never feel like reaching for it. I've got the Blu-ray and everything, but I'm never craving this movie like I tend to crave anything else in the series at some point. Even though at the time this totally captivated me and I loved it, I gotta say I was 8. And like I was saying earlier, we're judging Stargate worst to Stargate best. So I'm giving watchability for the Stargate movie a 5. Alright, so moving on to Stargate SG-1. The rights to this were a whole story, and there are a bunch of great retrospectives on Stargate that you can find on YouTube that'll tell you that story. But the TLDR is a couple guys from the Outer Limits were hyped on Stargate and they wanted to make a show. Yet they had to completely redo a lot of the lore, like how the alien worked, how the Stargate works. There's just a bunch of little things that are completely different. But I understand, I kind of prefer that you do that. If you're going to do a big reset, just go for it and do it. So without any further ado, let's get to it. Stargate SG-1, Season 1, Episode 1 and 2, Children of the Gods. Now, it really depends which version you're watching. I recommend the final cut. You have to go out of your way to buy this one separately, but you should, especially if you're with your family. If you have kids, don't watch the original cut. There's unnecessary frontal nudity, and it's just dumb. And there are a few things that don't make any sense. There's some updated visual effects. Just watch the final cut. Children of the Gods kicks everything off with a team of Air Force people just chilling out in the gate room. Not much happens round here. The Stargate activates, and a whole group of soldiers called Jaffa roll through, along with a gold guy. They take the one lady back with them, and Earth is on high alert. Somebody came back through the Stargate, which means O'Neill must not have blown it up. They bring O'Neill in to figure out what's going on. They talk to all the other guys from the mission, and O'Neill finally spills the beans that he did not blow it up.
You're sending another bomb?
Mark 5 this time, unless you have something to add.
General Hammond, sir. I regret to inform you that my report was not entirely accurate. Daniel Jackson is alive and living with the people on Abydos.
You violated direct orders. Why?
Because the people of Abydos are no threat to us. They deserve to be left alone.
That's not up to you.
With all due respect, sir.
We'll send the bomb through on schedule.
General, you can't do that.
Oh, I can't?
There are innocent people on that planet.
There are innocent people here. Take Colonel O'Neill to the holding room. Let's give him some time to think about things while I decide what to do with him. How many people did you say are on Abydos?
So we're going to send a team back to Abydos. Let's meet the crew. Ferretti and Kowalski from the movie, but also a girl this time.
Captain Samantha Carter reporting, sir.
If you're watching the final cut, you have the best version of this scene. But if you're not, then you have this version of this scene.
By the time you get to the other side, you're frozen stiff. Like you've just been through a blizzard. Naked.
That's a result of the compression your molecules undergo during the millisecond required for reconstitution.
Oh, here we go. Another scientist. General, please.
Theoretical astrophysicist.
Which means?
Which means she is smarter than you are, Colonel.
And just because my reproductive organs are on the inside instead of the outside, doesn't mean I can't handle whatever you can handle.
They send a team back to Abydos, and they try to figure out what's going on. Daniel's there, everybody else from the movie is there, played by different actors, except Skara. He's the only returning actor from the movie. And I think now it's time that we talk about recasting a little bit. I have one really strong opinion that I think would have made this whole show better. Instead of the rock bottom Colonel O'Neill, why couldn't they have had Richard Dean Anderson play Kowalski? I know why. It's because he needs to be O'Neill. He's the main character. But Richard Dean Anderson wanted to play him so differently that why don't we just call him a different guy? And as much as I love General Hammond, what if General O'Neill was running the Stargate program? Who better than the no-nonsense General O'Neill? Meanwhile, we don't know much about Kowalski. He could be a goofball. We didn't see him that much. Yet, we saw so much of O'Neill that we know that Richard Dean Anderson is nothing like him. That all being said, Michael Shanks does an excellent adaptation of James Spader's character. and seems exactly like him. I think he was only 24 during the shooting of this episode too. Daniel shows us around a little bit and we see this cartouche with all kind of symbols on it. Hieroglyphs that apparently translate to a map of the galaxy. This is what they needed to recalibrate their Stargate for stellar drift. Now I'd like you to sit there and think about that for a second. The DHD calculating for stellar drift makes total sense, but how is this cartouche gonna calculate the stellar drift? And if that's not what it does, then does it give us addresses? None of this makes any sense. But this is Stargate. You're gonna have to deal with that because there's a lot of stuff that is nonsense in this show. That's not what we're here for.
None of it means anything.
So anyway, they hang out for a little bit, catch up, and the same group of baddies comes to Abydos, proving that they came from somewhere else. They take more women, led by this mean guy who's got a gold logo on his head, and they're all going back to this holding area where one snake is deciding who her host is gonna be. Back at Stargate Command, it's time to figure out what our plan is.
Colonel, what do we know about these hostiles we didn't yesterday?
The Abaddon boys who survived the attack on the base camp thought it was Ra.
I thought he was dead, gentlemen. Which is it?
Oh, he's dead. He's definitely dead.
Then who's coming through the Stargate?
The legend goes, Ra's race was dying. He survived by taking over the body of his human host, an Egyptian boy. But who's to say more of his kind couldn't do the same thing? I mean, this could be happening right now.
We would all be much better off if the Stargate had been left in the ground.
With respect, sir, we can't bury our heads in the sand. I mean, think of how much we could learn. Think of what we could bring back.
What you could bring back is precisely what I'm afraid of, Captain. However, the President of the United States happens to agree with you. He has ordered the formation of 9 teams, whose duties will be to perform reconnaissance, determine threats, and if possible, to make peaceful contact with the peoples of these worlds. Now, these teams will operate on a covert, top-secret basis. No one will know of their existence, except the President and the Joint Chiefs. Colonel O'Neill?
Sir?
Your team will be designated SG-1. The team will consist of yourself, Captain Carter.
And me?
I'll take that under consideration. Major Kowalski, you will head SG-2.
Brady's conscious, sir.
We get the symbols to the planet they're all going to, and we mount a rescue mission. We arrive at the aliens' homeworld, and no one is around the Stargate. I find this weird, because the first thing that we do is we mount a couple of guys near the Stargate to at least radio in and let us know if something weird is going on. Yet this is their house, and nobody's at the gate. It's a planet full of people. Anyway, we start nosing around and run into some priests. Daniel uses the word Cor-Ai, which means Stargate, and they get invited to this swanky party. Who shows up but Apophis and his wife, who has inhabited Daniel's wife. So they end up in jail along with all the other people, and the bad guys' warriors are wandering around trying to find the right hosts for the gods, because the gods have had children, and we need bodies for the children of the gods. That's the name of the episode. Skara and Sharae are both chosen. Then, when the order is given to kill everybody else,
kill the rest.
O'Neill shouts to the big bad guy, "I can save these people. Help me." And I'd like for you to imagine, boss has said, all right, kill everybody. And your manager is hearing out another guy. Why wouldn't you just shoot that guy? I would pop him first. Somehow they make it through this conversation.
Many have said that. But you are the first I believe could do it.
For some reason, Teal'c believes in O'Neill. I don't see the logic there. That's okay. We can chalk that up to a character thing. Maybe Teal'c's just a moron. So they shoot up the place, kill all the Jaffa warriors, and escape. Teal'c feels like he has nowhere to go.
I have nowhere to go.
For this, you can stay at my place. Let's go!
So now O'Neill is hearing out the guy who kidnapped all these women, and they become great friends. It'll take some time before we actually deal with everything that Teal'c has done, but they'll get to it. We find out that the Jaffa warriors have baby snakes in their guts, and that gives them more strength and a long life. As we're making our way back to the Stargate, Apophis and the other gods are heading toward the Stargate themselves. They head out, and the Death Gliders are sent to take everybody out. We plucky humans kill everybody and save the day. Everybody escapes. We head back to the SGC, and we got some explaining to do. This is confusing. Why did it have to be so complicated? I get that we're sparking an adventure, but some of this stuff is just kind of convoluted for no reason. It's one thing to scratch the surface of something really deep, but explain this episode to somebody. It's not clean. So plot, I'm gonna give this one a 5. This is not the best that Stargate can do. Production, I'll give it a 9. This is the start of everything. There's a lot of building to do. There's a lot of stuff to figure out, creative commitments to be made. This was a big episode for the whole production. Characters were resetting everything. Was this Stargate at its best as far as characters go? On a scale of 1 to 10, it gets a 7. This sparks everything, but it gets so much better. Watchability, I don't know. It's not good. It's really not that great. I'll give it a 5. Seasons 1 and 2 are tough, but you gotta make it through. If you're auditioning this show for yourself, I would say skip ahead until you find a couple of watchability 10s. Watch those. Don't worry about spoilers. This isn't like Lost. And see if the show is really for you. Alright, moving on to the beginning of the regular season with Season 1, Episode 3, The Enemy Within. So this is sort of an epilogue to Children of the Gods. We saw a little bit of how the SGC is getting set up, but this is where we start to see the day-to-day operations kind of fall into place. Everyone's still getting to know each other and how they relate to each other. And the showrunners really want us to know that O'Neill and Kowalski are good old buddies.
You know, I'm kind of partial to P3575. If you don't mind taking P38577.
No, I'll take 577.
I'm not married to it. I want to be fair about this. How about we flip it?
How about you go where I tell?
What's really cool about this episode is the cast and crew and everybody were getting to know each other as they were producing this, and that makes the performances and the characters a lot more genuine. It really does feel like the first couple of weeks at a brand new job. Colonel O'Neill is putting together his final team, and he really wants Teal'c on the team. Now you might think to yourself, that's a little crazy. We barely know this guy. After one major heroic act, does that really justify putting him on the team? For O'Neill, it does. And not every character needs to make the same decision that most people would for it to be believable, but it does seem kind of stupid. Teal'c is getting grilled all throughout this episode by members of our government, and they just want to take him into a lab and study him. And that becomes an interesting through line. Back in the A-plot, Kowalski has a big ol' headache. And what's causing it? A young Gould symbiote. It can't fully take him over because it's too young, but it's got control of him like half the time. He manages to stay under the radar without killing somebody for about half an hour, but when we discover what's up, we lock him to this weird table, and everybody is demanding that we just cut this thing out of him. Except for our jerk friends from the government. They want to let Kowalski suffer so that they can talk to this Gould. They don't understand that there's no discussion or negotiating or anything. They are the antagonists. They are not your friends. And even though Dr. Warner thinks that this is going to kill him, they go forward and try to remove it. They get it all out, apart from a couple of bits, and even those small tiny bits are enough to store the soul of this evil Gould. It takes over Kowalski, and him and Teal'c face off in the gate room. Then O'Neill, with no hesitation, tells Teal'c to kill him. His kid is probably named after him. I never realized that until rewatching recently, because when they opened the elevator, I thought he said Colonel, and I thought that was a mistake, but no, he said Charlie. So yeah, O'Neill's best buddy dies at the hands of Teal'c, and Colonel O'Neill is proud of him. This act was enough for our government to be convinced that we can put Teal'c on our flagship team. Now I'd like to think that eventually when the Stargate program becomes declassified, this is listed on the long list of missteps. It ended up working out for you, but you probably shouldn't have done this. But yeah, this episode ends up pretty sad, all things considered. The movie version of Kowalski was just some dad, but the series version of Kowalski, he's the type of guy that you meet in a diner in a sitcom. I love this guy. It's a shame to see him go, but spoiler, this is not the last we'll see of him. Alright, time to score it. Plot, I'm gonna give it a 5. There's a lot of things going on in this episode, and I know it feels like they might have tied it up in a nice bow at the end, with this Seinfeld convergence of plots where Teal'c proves his allegiance to Earth, but it's just not that successful to me. Production is a really sneaky 7. This is a higher score than what's on the surface because they're exploiting the production value, maybe inadvertently, of setting up this base as they're setting up their TV show. Those vibes are just free production value and I love it. On so many other shows, you just clue into something that's already existed for many years, but you can feel all these bonds cementing on TV. Characters, I'm gonna give it a 5. Major stuff happens for these people, but you don't quite buy it. Like when O'Neill and Kowalski are just being buddies in front of the general as he's trying to explain our next mission, it feels out of place. Also, we're not getting much out of Teal'c here when it feels like we probably should be. He should be regretting his decision, questioning everything, but with super stoic warrior character. The point is that you can't read that. The watchability score on this one is complicated. If it really is the 3rd episode that you've ever seen, it's pretty good. I'd give it something like a 7. But we're talking Stargate worst to Stargate best. I'm going to repeat that a million times in this review. So we're going to give The Enemy Within a 4. Alright, moving on to Season 1, Episode 4, Emancipation. SG-1 arrives on a planet and immediately saves this guy from some dogs. The leaders of his people come around and they love that. Except they don't like that Carter's a woman.
She speaks. She dies.
They sentenced her to death just for speaking. And get this, they're the good guys in this story. We go back to their village. Carter's protesting, hanging out with these people at all. And all the other guys are like, why don't you just get over it for this one? In the middle of the night, Captain Carter is kidnapped by the guy that we originally saved, and he takes her to another village that's run by this guy. He brought Carter here to trade for his girlfriend, who's this guy's daughter. And long story short, she gets out of there, but this guy's girlfriend stayed behind and she's gonna be stoned to death, so we have to go back and rescue her. Carter squares off with Chief Bad Guy. All right, now let's talk about it. This is bad. This episode is very, very bad. It's just written by a meathead almost 30 years ago. Plot gets a 1. It is the worst Stargate plot. Production gets a 4. A lot of this episode is ugly as sin, but they're integrating animals, that's kind of cool. And I am actually a fan of the brown color grading here. They're at least trying to dress up the Pacific Northwest to look different. Characters, I don't know how they got it so wrong. Or maybe in response to getting it so wrong, they got it right later on. But characters gets a 1. This is the worst character episode for Stargate. And watchability is a 1. Absolutely the worst. Alright, Season 1, Episode 5, The Broca Divide. We send a probe through to this world and discover it's pitch black. We go through with night vision goggles and find a bunch of cavemen. Then there's a bunch of people carrying lanterns. And they bring us over to the Land of Light. How is this possible? Like, no really, how is it possible that it is straight up night in the forest and day in the Land of Light? That is magic. It's dumb. It's impossible. But anyway, they bring us to the next set, and they tell us all about how the cavemen out in the forest are called the Touched. We go back to the SGC, and one of our people starts acting like a caveman. Then everybody starts acting like a caveman, and everyone gets a little silly. We discover that the cure is allergy medicine, and then we cure all of our people, and we go back to the planet and reunite the Touched with the people from the Land of Light. This is dumb in a lot of ways. I've always hated the look of this Las Vegas hotel lobby set. I've always hated their costumes. This hat is silly. The way they act is silly. I don't respect this plot at all. I give this plot a 3. Production is not good. That also gets a 3. Everyone is acting out of character on purpose in this episode, and we're only on episode 5, so how are we even supposed to know what their characters are? That gets a 2. And watchability is a 4. It's fine. I'll watch it. Alright, Season 1, Episode 6, The First Commandment. One of the SG team leaders has decided to become a god. Him and his team went through a few weeks ago, and all these people bowed down to him as their god. And he didn't say no. So now he's decided that this is his home, and that anyone who crosses him is going to die. SG-1 comes through to figure out what the heck is going on, and they're totally outnumbered. This guy basically has an army. He's got them all working on this one project, which turns out to be an orange shield that protects them from the intense sun on this planet. Because basically, if you go out at daytime, you're gonna die. An added element of complexity here is that the bad guy, Jonas, and Carter were engaged at one point. So Carter knows all his issues. In the end, we prove to everybody that he's not a god, he's just using technology, and that they or anyone can activate it. They set up the shield, and the day is saved. Also, I can't help but mention that this is Alan Matthews from Boy Meets World. This is an early weird one, and I get what they were thinking. There's no episode like this later on, and I think that probably has to do with the military's involvement. Like, the military loved Stargate. They gave Richard Dean Anderson some sort of recognition for enlistments going up because of Stargate. And boy, in the 90s and early 2000s, they sure did love enlistments. But you don't really see officers go crazy very often in the show anymore. Not without some sort of infection or whatever. This guy did it all on his own. Plot, this one doesn't really fit in with the rest of the show. I'm gonna give it a 4. Production, they are trying to not make this look like Planet Pacific Northwest, and I appreciate that, but it's not working very well. In fact, they have a little conversation explaining that away at the beginning of this episode. Not gonna work on me. I'm gonna give it a 4. Characters, they take it in a direction that Carter doesn't end up going. Like, this Carter is not anything like the character throughout the rest of the series. I'm gonna give this a 2, and watchability is a 3. Alright, Season 1, Episode 7, Cold Lazarus. This is a weird one. This episode is all about a yellow sand planet inhabited by blue crystal beings that are sentient. This episode is weird, okay? And I don't know if it's like good weird, but it's weird. One of the crystals returns pretending to be Colonel O'Neill. He goes back home and we deal with a lot of Jack's dead kid stuff. It's kind of rough. It's nice to have the silly Billy character have some depth to him.
Parents shouldn't outlive their children. It isn't natural. Sarah comes up here and talks to him sometimes and it helps her. If it helps you, I'm glad you're here.
Unfortunately, it's kind of done in this 90s way, and they just kill the moment. But that's just how they did it back then.
I'm showing you it if Charlie is still there, inside you.
I think in this case, the plot is kind of underserved by the production, because the production looks silly. I'll give the plot a 6, production a 3, characters a 7, and watchability 4. Okay, season 1, episode 8, The Nox. Okay, so this plot is kind of stupid. The government really wants to see more stuff come out of the Stargate program.
Because to be perfectly frank, this administration is not satisfied with the current progress of the Stargate program.
There are still technologies even the Goa'uld won't seek. There is a creature that lives on an unpopulated world. It possesses powers of invisibility.
But look, guess who also thought the same thing at the same time? It's Apophis. You know, the guy from the plot. He's also here on planet Pacific Northwest. SG-1 gets shot up and brought back to life by Quark. And guess what? It wasn't an alien bug, it was the crunchy hippie aliens all along who were masters of the invisible. Oh, and also, they're super advanced. Gotcha. I'll give this episode a 4 for plot. Production, we're back on this same planet, but they had that cool flying city. I'll give that a 5. Characters, we're introduced to the Nox, and they keep coming back, and they're super cool. We'll give that a 5. Watchability, oh, this one's rough. Give it a 3. All right, season 1, episode 9. Brief Candle. This episode is about a society that ages rapidly, and turns out this god, Pelops, made these people age so rapidly using nanites. Guess what? You can catch the aging disease. And guess who catches it? Colonel O'Neill. So he becomes an old man on this terrible set, probably the worst set since Broca Divide. This thing looks too perfect in some ways and not too perfect in other ways. They were just doing what they can, I get it, but boy, is this awful. And the makeup, the old age makeup, not good. And why does he develop an accent?
Pelops doesn't give a rat's ass about things like love. His kind kidnap people like you and take them to other worlds to be used as slaves.
The plot is stupid. I'll give it a 2. Production is pretty bad. I'll give that a 2. Characters between the crappy young people and how crappy O'Neill is played, I'll give this one a 3. Watchability, 2. Don't be afraid to skip this one. All right, moving on. Thor's hammer. This is the first time that we're talking about Vikings. SG-1 goes to a planet that's protected by Thor using this device that beams away anybody with Goa'uld DNA, including Jaffa, to this maze, this labyrinth.
This is your prison. Your technology will not function here.
Joke, I think we just got the answering machine.
When you tire of this existence, go to the Hall of Mjolnir and face the hammer. Only the host can leave this place alive.
So while they're in the labyrinth, O'Neill and Teal'c run into an Unus, played by James Earl Jones, which is a Goa'uld symbiote inhabiting this giant Unus body, making it a spooky, scary demon.
I am Unus, the first one.
You do not exist.
Kill the human, and we will feast together.
Kind of neat and menacing in a way that we haven't seen much.
Once, the Goa'uld were all as Unus. We were few, but we rule millions.
Also, we have a first instance of meeting somebody who was formerly possessed by a god, which is pretty cool. It's a nice perspective to have that there is life after being a host, which is inspiring to Daniel. It gives him something to work for. Plot, I'll give this one a 5. They're trying some new stuff. It's kind of cool. Production, they had these insane props in this nice labyrinth location. I'm gonna give that a 7. Characters, I'll give it a 6. Overall watchability, it still has that season 1 tone. We're not quite familiar with each other. We're all still strongly being whatever it is our one-line description of our character is. I'll give it a 5. All right, season 1, episode 11, The Torment of Tantalus. This episode is freaking cool. We jump back to 1945 and we see guys experimenting on the gate. Come to find out it's actually Daniel watching footage of the gate being experimented on. They manually dial the thing, and they get a lock. Up until now, nobody had thought that the Stargate had ever been opened before 1994. They send a guy through it, it's Ernest Littlefield, and he never comes back.
Sir, the planet in question is not on the cartouche we found on Abydos.
What's the significance of that?
The Goa'ulds haven't charted it. They may not even have been there.
If the Goulds haven't been to this planet and there is obviously a gate there, then we would have unquestionable proof that they didn't originally build the Stargates.
Thank you. Thank all of you for your very thorough analysis of the situation. But I was already convinced by Dr. Jackson's initial argument. Ernest Littlefield could still be alive, and we should try to find him.
We track down the address that he went to, and they bring along Catherine. You remember Catherine. Her dad is the one who found the Stargate. They were set to be married. Is that Paul McGillian? But I thought he was Scottish.
What's the significance of that?
Guess not. Okay. SG-1 goes there and discovers Ernest Littlefield is still there.
We're real.
It's about time.
Turns out the planet that Ernest was on this entire time is like a Rosetta Stone for 4 alien races. The Ancients, the Nox, the Asgard, and the Furlings. This episode is the first time where Stargate's really thinking big.
I know this.
Of course. High school chemistry.
1 proton, 1 electron. The basic elements are what make up the universe. They are the basic building block.
Of course! How do you ensure universal communication? You reduce the method of communication to the most basic elements common to everyone and everything that exists in the universe. Jack, this is a true universal language.
Plot, I'm giving this one an 8. It tugs at your heartstrings. It makes you say, God, he was there this whole time alone. Production, this one's super cool, especially for the budget. You get an 8 too. Characters, 8s all across the board. And watchability, you can't miss this one. This is too good. I'm going to give it a 9 just to save a little bit of headroom for those that are even better than this one. But this one is really good. Okay, Season 1, Episode 12, Bloodlines. So this episode expands a lot of our understanding of Jaffa culture. We want to have a deeper understanding of how the Goa'uld work, their biology. So hey, what better way than to take one? Really what this is an excuse to go back to Chulak, the planet from the first episode. We didn't spend much time on the Jaffa homeworld, and it doesn't hurt to dig a little deeper. We meet Teal'c's old master, Braytak.
You challenge me, Hashak?
No, I don't think we came to fight you. A shame. We're here on a mission. If you don't want to be a part of it, just say so.
He's going to come up a lot in the series. And we discover that the Jaffa community sees Teal'c as a traitor. That's what this symbol means. Which has put his wife and kid in a really bad position. Meanwhile, Carter and Daniel sneak off to go grab one of the Goa'ulds from his tank. They take one and Daniel's like, if I shoot that tank of Goa'ulds, then they won't hurt anyone else like they hurt my wife. And he's like, nah, that would be a bad thing. Thanks, Carter, you set me straight. Psych! Bop, bop! Have a nice dream, little Goa'uld babies. Pretty out of character for Daniel, but I think you could argue that it's pushing his character, because this is about what would it take for the voice of reason and morality to become a violent murderer. Meanwhile, in the world where everyone's name ends with a C, Teal'c, Drayak, and Ryak are trying to not have Ryak be a Jaffa, but he gets sick and needs to become a Jaffa, so Teal'c gives him his dude at his belly and almost dies, but then he doesn't die, and then they sneak away as prisoners. This episode is one of those D&D book type episodes where the story is not that great, but it introduces so much lore that it's kind of important and you have to watch it. Unless you don't care about characters randomly being introduced and we say, greetings old friend, it's been a long time since I've seen you, and you've never seen this person before. As long as you don't care about that, then you can skip this one. So plot, I'm gonna give it a 3. It's a pretty thin plot. The whole point of this is, let's go back to Chulak, which isn't really a story. It's like every plot is a C plot, because nothing's all that important. Production, I'm gonna give it a 7. Characters, I'll give this a 7 as well. It's pretty important. We see O'Neill at his best. We see Daniel at his worst, and Teal'c at his weakest. That's character stuff. Watchability though, I'm giving this a 4. I do not like it that much. Moving on. Oh geez. Season 1, Episode 13, Fire and Water. If you're familiar with this episode, you've got 3 words on your mind. What? Feet? Amaroka. It really feels like TNG in the worst way. Daniel's held captive by a weird alien. and SG-1 is implanted with false memories. They think Daniel's dead, but then slowly it starts to unravel that, no, I think he's alive. They do a little test, turns out something's a little hinky, and meanwhile this entire time Daniel's been imprisoned by this alien who keeps asking him, what fate? Amaroka!
The memory of your history, your race, is within you, beneath the surface.
I hope so.
You may be damaged.
I understand.
You could die.
Well, we don't really have a choice, do we?
Remember Amaroka.
The god Belus came down onto Babylon, unto the place of Amaroka, and cut the woman asunder. Oh, God! Oh, God, he killed her. I'm sorry, that's all I ever knew, I swear.
It's a little unique, but it's very reminiscent of There Are Four Lights plot. I'll give it a 5. Production, they made this whole ass set. I'll give it a 5. Characters, we get to see Daniel get a little mad. That's fun. Michael Shanks is really good at playing angry. And this is the first time that Daniel has died on this series. We'll give characters a 6. Watchability, as you're watching it, maybe it's easier to get through it, but the memory of it is just going to be a big, stupid alien in a Halloween costume saying, what fate, Amaroka? I'll give the watchability a 5. All right, turn down the lights a little bit and turn on the Barry White. Time for Season 1, Episode 14, Hathor. This is one of those episodes that's iconic. It felt like it was Stargate's story. A lot of the time, Stargate felt like it was doing an impression of other shows. This time, it felt like Stargate was doing Stargate. We're on Earth, and some archaeologists discover a sarcophagus. Yes, that magical device that can bring people back from the dead. Inside it is Hathor. She talks kind of funny.
We are Hathor. You would be wise to unbind us and kneel before your goddess.
She says we instead of me. I think Hathor has read a management book. Anyway, she's brought to the SGC and uses her poison ivy powers to trick all the fellas into doing her bidding.
Hathor is a friend.
Yes, I do believe that. Bring her down.
Are you kidding?
Eventually she takes over the base and she turns O'Neill into her first Jaffa with that scary prosthetic on his tummy. They use the sarcophagus to get us out of that one. Our only hope is all the ladies. Also, Teal'c is unaffected by Hathor's poison ivy power.
Drop your weapon.
Hathor is defeated, O'Neill gets his tummy back, and Stargate has a super memorable villain out on the run. Plot, look at this one, a 7. It's a fun story. Production, we see a lot of the base on this one, and Hathor's costume is really elaborate. I'll give it a 5. Characters, everybody is kind of made to take a back seat because they're being mind controlled, but the character of Hathor is pretty strong. I'll give that a 6. Watchability, this one's a classic. It gets an 8. Alright, Season 1, Episode 15, Singularity. There's an SG team off-world observing a black hole, but Nirti uses a bioweapon to kill everybody on the planet's surface. The only person left alive is this kid named Cassandra, and implanted inside her is a Naquita bomb. Moral quandary. What do we do? Let the child blow up? Bring her here? Save her? Try to operate on her? Ultimately, Carter has to make the decision that I'm gonna hang out with you while you blow up.
Colonel, I'm staying.
I'm ordering you to get back up here right now.
Then she discovers kid didn't blow up. Everything's fine. The plot is fine. It just takes forever for the second half of this episode to get going. I'll give it a 4 for plot. Production, we see a lot of new spaces and spaces that are clearly like not on a soundstage. They're not made from scratch. They look good. It makes this show kind of feel like a real show. For this moment in the series especially, I'll give it a 7. Characters, you always love seeing a character say, I can't do this anymore. I'm trying to resist my own tendencies, but there's nothing I can do about it. Carter definitely does that in this episode, so we'll give that a 7. And watchability, like I said, it's just so rough in the second half of this episode. I'll give it a 5. Season 1, Episode 16, Cor-Ai. This one uses an actor that we see a couple of times throughout the series. It always takes me out of it. And it's one of those episodes where a character is on trial for their deeds, and they agree they're bad, and I just can't stand stuff like this.
Why are you doing this?
When I look into Hano's eyes, I see the horror on the faces of many others as their loved ones prepare for Goa'uld absorption. Worse yet is the face of the victims whom I selected as they realize they are about to take their final human breath. Hano's father is not the first nor the last of those whose lives I've taken. And I have done far worse, O'Neill. I cannot give all of their loved ones retribution, but I can at least give it to this one.
I'll give the plot a 3. I'll give production a 6 because the set and the uniforms and everything just kind of feels otherworldly. They could have used some work in casting and hair and makeup. Characters, I'll give it a 6 as well. We're diving deep into people's backstories. Watchability though, I hate this episode. I'll give it a 2. Season 1, episode 17, Enigma. This episode introduces the Tolan. The opening shot of this episode is super cool too. I'm pretty sure this is a miniature. You can even see the bad rotoscoping. As bad as that looks, I'm happy that they're doing it. That opening shot is sick. So this episode is all about how primitive we are. A bunch of scientists are discovered on this planet with a volcano that's going off. One of them is Jigsaw. Pay no attention to that. We bring them back, nurse them all back to health, and discover that they're way more advanced than we are. We try to do a deal. They're not interested because they gave technology to a race one time and they blew themselves up with it. Honestly, it's a pretty good point. Yes, there's advanced technology. It's right there. But would we destroy ourselves? It's sci-fi stuff. So anyway, the whole thing wraps up with the Nox taking care of the Tolan. We got some neat visual effects in this episode. This is the introduction of Colonel Mayborn and the idea that not everybody in the US government is our friend. Plot, I'll give this one a 7. Production, that opening shot was really fun. Their costumes could be better, but I'm going to give it an 8. Characters gets a 7. Watchability, I'll give it a 7. All right, season 1, episode 18, Solitudes. I'll keep it really simple. Carter and O'Neill get rerouted to another Stargate. It's a frozen wasteland. They don't know where they are. They go up to the surface and they're like, oh, this is an ice planet. Everything is frozen over. Turns out, they're just in Antarctica. There's a second Stargate on Earth. That's cool thinking. Like, of all places to put it, they didn't put another one in the sand. They put it in Antarctica. But we just spend a lot of time with Carter and O'Neill here, and there's a big mystery that Daniel figures out. It's a really great episode. I'm gonna give the plot an 8. Production, I'm gonna give that an 8 too. Characters, this one gets a 9. Watchability, I'm giving this one an 8. All right, season 1, episode 19, Tin Man. SG-1 gates to this warehouse location and they get stunned. When they wake up, they meet this guy, and he says this over and over.
Come try ya!
He explains that he's made them better. They don't want to be better. And all of a sudden, Jack is good at math.
99,207,000 of your hours.
Well, that's 11,000 years.
How did you know that?
That's right.
Yeah.
They get back to the infirmary, and lo and behold, they're made of circuitry and wires. While initially this is a little Twilight Zone twist, it gets really sad. Because when they go back to the planet, they find out they're not the originals. Their minds haven't been transferred. They were copied. So the real SG-1 still exists, and they get to go home. It kind of tugs at you in a way that only sci-fi can. Okay, plot, I'm gonna give this a 6. Production is interesting in a season 1 way, and the calls that they made are probably things that I would have done too, where I'm like, oh, let's just shoot here. We'll dress it up. We'll put some computer graphics in there. Then we'll dress up this room, and it'll make you feel like the whole facility looks like that. I would have done the same thing. I'll give that a 6. Characters is really strong. You feel for SG-1, you feel for Harlan, because the only reason he made these people is because he needed some friends. He's been alone for 11,000 years. That gets an 8. And watchability, I'm gonna give it a 9. This has a lot of ingredients and you're gonna be happy you didn't miss it. All right, season 1, episode 21, Politics. Senator Kinsey is here, and he demands to know why all this money is being spent on the Stargate program. And if we can't convince him of its value, he's gonna shut the place down.
I've read several reports of your excursion, and I have tried to maintain an open mind. I must admit that I find the very idea of this facility, of this command, offensive. I have found several examples where you have averted tragedy on a global scale.
Well, hey, lucky they've been making a TV show about it this whole time. This is a clip show, full of Family Guy flashbacks. Hey Lois, this is worse than that time that I was a caveman. At the end of the day, the senator is not convinced. He hates us and he refuses to pronounce Goa'uld correctly.
And to determine the Goa'uld threat.
Excuse me, Senator, I'm sorry. There should be an apostrophe after the A before the U. It's pronounced
Goa'uld.
So the president orders us to shut it down.
The president has made it perfectly clear if we were unable to convince the senator, we would cease operations effective immediately. Our commander-in-chief has given us our orders accordingly. Dismissed.
Plot is fine. It's like 3 important details that are cooked into this plot. That's the only reason I'm not going to give it a really low score, because it's a clip show. What do you want? I'm giving it a 3. Production, it's cute, but you're a clip show, that gets a 2. Characters, this gets a 5. Senator Kinsey's a really strong character. He wants what he wants. He's real slimy and he's coming back later. And watchability, if you're watching this review, it can be a 1, because I'll just tell you what happens. But if this is your first run through, this recap before the finale doesn't hurt, I'll give it a 2, which is high for a clip show. Alright, Season 1, Episode 22, the finale, Within the Serpent's Grasp. SG-1, using the knowledge from the alternate universe, is going to the address that Daniel found. They're violating direct orders and trying to save the world, even though they're going to get in trouble when they get back. Not too long after they arrive, they discover that they're on a ship, and it's one of the 2 ships headed to Earth. We discover that on this ship is Cor-Ai, who's a Goa'uld inhabiting our friend Skara from Abydos. And we also get the introduction of the Zat weapon. Zat guns shoot once to stun, twice to kill.
So 3 shots disintegrates them.
I'm going to pretend you didn't say that, because that is quite possibly the stupidest thing I have ever heard you say.
This is the introduction of Goa'uld ships, and they're kind of cool. They're very much the set, but shot from different angles. And I have always had major problems with the bridge. Like, if you're going to go this far and make the walls that ornate, why would you make the controls a thing with a giant sticker on it? I know the answer. And the answer is, well, you're not going to be able to tell on TV. On TV, you'd never know. So anyway, we get caught, and the Goa'uld have arrived in our solar system a lot sooner than we thought. They are here. Alright, so for the season finale of Stargate SG-1 Season 1, I'm going to give this plot an 8. It's a really exciting story in which the stakes continually get raised. And we're brought back to the beginning of why we fight. It could have been Cor-Ai, but it's Cor-Ai, Skara. There's something about that DNA that calls straight back to the movie that's really cool. Production in this episode is huge, especially for the time. That gets an 8. The amount of computer graphics, the giant sets that had to be built, a lot of this work is deserving of a 9 or a 10, but there are some things that just didn't need to happen. When we're recreating Ra's control console, why did they have to go with just a stupid sticker? I'll be honest, it could be that I've seen this show a million times, but the hallways of the Hathor are so clearly the set shot from different angles, and it starts to get to you. They needed more pieces to mix it up, to trick your brain, so you could lose yourself in the story. Characters, we've got some really good compulsion in here. Our characters cannot help but violate direct orders from the president himself in order to save the world, and they all agreed to do it together. That is what Stargate SG-1 is all about. Making horrible calls for the right reasons and exploiting dumb luck. So characters gets an 8. Now for watchability, we gotta go Stargate worst to Stargate best. This gets a 7. It's a big episode and they did it really, really well, but they've outdone themselves. All right, my friends, that is the end of part 1. It's kind of fun to leave on a cliffhanger here. Subscribe for more, because part 2 is going to be in your feed really soon. And season 2 is where this show really picks up speed. And also, we should probably talk in the comments. Are there any episodes where I totally missed the mark in your eyes? Let me know what you think, but quantifying art like this is inherently dumb. We all know that, right?